Would you please welcome to the microphone Max Hudson, everyone.
Good. Thanks, Russell. This is a very serious debate indeed, and it's my job to talk on behalf of the farmers. As such, I would have to say and warn the audience that some of the material used in this presentation could contain some coarse language, so be prepared for that. So up here you can see the Wheatbelt Catchment Alliance. That's the area of interest. The Wheatbelt Catchment Alliance was formed because of the discontent of a number of farmers in the state at the way, you could say, the way were treated out of the National Action Plan, which was for Western Australia were allocated $318 million over a 4-year period. And out of this amount of money, barely $10 million hit the ground where farmers wanted it to give them some opportunity to do some engineering works in their land to reverse the situation that they had. So because of this, there was a series of public meetings held throughout the state, and the Wheatbelt Catchment Alliance was formed. Now you can see that the area there is sort of quite specific. You can see the, I'll give you a go here, see if I can work this thing. There it is, that's the area, that's where I come from, and these other, the Yilgarn and the Mortlock and the Lockhart and Dumbleyung. So there's 9 million hectares, or practically half of the agricultural area contained in this in our area of interest. So what the farmers were saying is, you know, we've had a pretty rough deal and we want the government to help us reverse the situation. So in about 2008, we went to see the Brendan Grills, the Minister for Regional Development, and said, well, look, we want to put up a proposal, and out of that $10 million, I might add $3 million. I'll just grab a drink of water. Right. Don't think it's going to stay there. Okay, that's fine. Out of that, fortunately for the Yarra Group, $3 million were allocated for that. There was about $2 million went on the ground to put in 100 kilometres of drain, and we set up a pilot study out of the funds, and some very useful information came out of that. So I'll get back to that later, but the point was that the Department of Agriculture had put out the figures that $300 million per annum were lost to production through the encroachment of salinity. Now, you might say, oh, that's a lot of money, but when you analysed, if there's 1 million hectares, that's only $300 a hectare that's gone out. And apart from that, there's lots of other land that are sort of affected. But the important thing I wanted to make was that this land here is virtually, as Richard George could probably back me up if he will, all that land is virtually in the Yilgarn block. The boundary out to the right of that is the clearing line, so that land to the west of this area that our area of interest is of higher relief, and it's not within the Yilgarn block, and it has river systems. You can see in the centre of this picture there, you see that's the main Avon River going out there, and down to the south you've got the Blackwood, which the Dumbleyung feeds into. Also, you can see that down at the bottom, you can see that triangular lots, that's Lake Grace, and all that stuff is all feeding in, and it all ends up in the Salt River catchment there in the middle, and then goes out into the Avon, and there's a hell of a lot of pressure. Everything congregates down there, except in the Yarra, where it's a landlocked situation, quite serious, so that the area is so flat, it's very prone to salinisation. So I guess when we went to Brendan Grills, he said, okay, that's fine, I accept your proposal in principle. And the proposal was that we extend the Yarra Yarra project further out into the landscape. And he said, but you'll need to go away and find out, have something to back up your argument. You'll need to go and give me an indication, is salinity really affecting productivity, or is this just a myth, or did the Ag Department just grab that figure out of the air? So what we did was we went to each one of those catchment areas you can see and held workshops and did case studies at desktop level, and then backed that up with workshops with the farmers, so that we had workshops in each of those areas, and we out of that we had 47 farmers that signed expressions of interest to be involved in that project, and those farmers committed out of 1,000 kilometres of drain that we were proposing, that they agreed to contribute $500 per kilometre per annum to maintain and manage that drainage system. So that was a pretty big commitment to make. And when I was in Dumbalung at the workshop, I put the proposal to the farmers, and one young fellow got up and said, come on fellas, you can see this is a no-brainer, we've got to support this. And his father, who was Owen Dare actually, who some of you might know, was sitting next to me as a member of our committee. I said to Owen, what's this no-brainer thing? What's he talking about? Is that an insult or what? He said, no, it's not an insult at all. He said, what he's saying is, come on fellas, you don't need any brains to work out that this is going to be a successful project. So that was the first time I ever heard this phrase, no-brainer, and this is the first time I've ever had an opportunity to use it again, because now I know what it means. I mean, well, it is a no-brainer that salinity certainly affects productivity, there's no doubt about that. So that was a bit of a rundown on our workshops. So another interesting thing is one of the workshops we had was at Cunderdin, at the invitation to the principal of the Cunderdin Agricultural College. So we actually held our first workshop there, and the principal signed up to a expression of interest to be involved in this project. So you can see it's not much good saying, one thing or the other, but if you can back it up with facts, and farmers have always been very innovative people. You've got to remember the no-till proposal that was put up, and that's used universally today. And the farmers in the Yarra Yarra have come up with a proposal to put to government that we can also come up with innovative ideas to fix this problem, which is a conglomerate of different ways of approaching the thing. So with the case studies we did in all these catchments, the number of catchments was 6. Total area of land within the targeted sub-catchments, 186,000 hectares. Total farmland at risk, 48,000 hectares. Total length of proposed drain, 24 kilometres. Total landholders involved, 49. Landholders signed expression of interest, 47. So from then on we had to, under Brendan Grill's instruction, he was very forceful, I might say, and he put us under pressure a fair bit. He said, what about the Shire councils? So we contacted the Shires, had some presentations to them. There's practically around about 30 Shires involved in that area of interest there. And I got back 21 Shires letters of support because their rate base is a danger, and because of the threat to production, and they were really in serious trouble, so that the Shires support us. So the next part of my presentation. I never ever thought I'd run out of time. But the thing is, all this idea generated from the Yarra Yarra catchment, where we had Yarra Yarra Catchment Management Group was formed in 1997, and because we had access to incredible topographical information under a GIS system that was built, that we had built for ourselves, we were able to interrogate the landscape and divide it up into 11 catchment areas. Now we call them zones, and there were zone meetings in the catchment area. In those zones meetings, the Yarra Yarra strategy was to create corridors through the landscape, vegetated corridors to decrease the rising water tables. Farmers said, well, okay, let's have the corridors, but we've got this real problem with the high water tables and the salinity being just ruining that land, and the trees that we've planted in those valley floors, a lot of them have died. So that let's put a drain through the middle of this. Let's have a complex where we've got your revegetated corridors and with the drain, so that you've got a lot of options that we're dealing with. And it looks like it's working very well in the Yarra Yarra, and we're about to do an assessment. We're getting funding to do an assessment to see how it all panned out. Which it panned out pretty well, actually. Good, thanks.
Well done, Max.